November 18th, 1978. Deep inside the Guyanese jungle, a voice speaks into a microphone. The people listening believe they are attending one final community meeting. Within hours, more than 900 lives will be gone, and the world will learn the name Jonestown.
When your life is in danger, your mind works fast.
Odell Rhodes would survive what happened next. Years later, beneath a wooden pavilion surrounded by dense rainforest, hundreds of residents gather together. Mothers hold children close. Elderly followers sit quietly on long benches. Loudspeakers hang overhead. The atmosphere feels strangely calm. A recording device captures everything. Today, investigators know it simply as tape Q042. 44 minutes of voices, arguments, emotions, and decisions. Standing at the center of it all is Jim Jones. To his followers, he is father, a visionary leader, a protector. To critics, he is something entirely different. Exhausted, ill, and increasingly paranoid, Jonestown was supposed to be paradise, a socialist utopia hidden deep within the jungle, a place free from racism, poverty, and injustice. Thousands believed they were building a better future. Most people think the tragedy began with poison. It didn't. The chain of events that led to disaster started miles away at a remote airstrip, a place where several residents were preparing to leave Jonestown forever and where everything suddenly changed. Earlier that day, United States Congressman Leo Ryan prepares to leave Guyana. Accompanying him are journalists, relatives, and several temple members who have decided they no longer want to stay. Their decision represents something Jim Jones fears more than anything else: defection. As trucks begin carrying defectors toward the airstrip, tensions rise rapidly. For the first time, large numbers of residents are openly abandoning the movement. The carefully constructed image of unity begins to collapse. Inside Jonestown, control is slipping away. What follows is not simply a story about death. It is a story about loyalty, power, manipulation, fear, and belief. A story that began years before anyone entered the jungle, and a story whose warning signs are still studied today. To understand Jonestown, we have to travel backward. Back before Guyana, back before the settlement, back before the final recording. Because the story did not begin in the jungle. It began decades earlier, with one man and an idea that attracted thousands. Jim Jones first gained attention as a preacher in Indiana. During a period of deep racial division in America, he promoted integration and equality. His church welcomed people from different backgrounds. His message resonated with thousands. Followers believed they had found a leader who genuinely cared. Critics, however, noticed something else. Jones demanded unusual levels of loyalty and obedience. Even during these early years, some observers worried about the influence he held. As membership expanded, so did the People's Temple. Donations increased. Political connections grew stronger. Public influence expanded. What started as a church slowly evolved into a powerful organization with devoted followers willing to trust Jones.
Some of the people here believe this is the best thing that ever happened in their lives.
To outsiders, many members appeared genuinely happy. Eventually, the organization relocated much of its activity to California. San Francisco and Los Angeles became major centers of operation. The temple gained national attention, attracted influential supporters, and expanded rapidly. But beneath the public image, former members began speaking out. Stories emerged describing intimidation, punishment, humiliation, and psychological control. The allegations were difficult to verify, but they continued growing. As investigations intensified, Jones became increasingly suspicious. Journalists asked uncomfortable questions. Concerned relatives demanded answers. Former members continued sharing accusations. To Jones, criticism was no longer disagreement. It became evidence that enemies were surrounding him from every direction. Looking for distance from scrutiny, Jones found a remote location in Guyana, deep rainforest, limited outside access, thousands of miles away from most critics. Trees were cleared, cabins were built, roads were cut into the jungle. The settlement received a name, Jonestown. To many followers, it represented the fulfillment of a dream. To others, it would eventually become something far more troubling. In November of 1978, Congressman Leo Ryan arrives in Guyana determined to see Jonestown for himself. Reports from former members and worried relatives have raised serious concerns. At first glance, Jonestown appears successful. Residents welcome visitors warmly. Children perform songs. Smiling faces fill the pavilion. Community members praise life inside the settlement. But appearances begin to crack almost immediately. During the visit, a nervous resident quietly slips a handwritten note to a journalist. The message is brief but powerful. The writer is asking for help, asking for escape, asking for a way out. The note contains only a few words, yet its significance is enormous. For years, Jonestown has been presented as a voluntary paradise. Now, for the first time, visitors have direct evidence that some residents may be trapped against their will. As news of the note spreads through Ryan's delegation, more residents begin approaching privately. Some speak cautiously, others appear terrified. Several openly express a desire to leave with the congressman. The number of defectors continues growing throughout the visit. That evening, tensions reach a new level. A temple loyalist launches an attack against one of Ryan's group. The incident is brief but revealing. The carefully managed image of peace begins falling apart. The following morning, preparations for departure begin. Defectors gather belongings. Families make difficult decisions. Some residents choose to stay. Others decide they cannot remain any longer. Across Jonestown, uncertainty spreads. The community is beginning to divide in public. For many residents, this moment represents the hardest decision of their lives. Friends separate. Relationships fracture. Longtime believers suddenly abandon the movement they once trusted completely. The convoy eventually reaches Port Kaituma Airstrip. Surrounded by rainforest, the runway offers a path back to the outside world. Small aircraft wait nearby. For the defectors, freedom appears close. After years of isolation, escape finally seems possible. Then something changes. Another vehicle appears near the runway. Witnesses notice unfamiliar faces inside. The atmosphere shifts immediately. Conversations stop. Nervous glances spread through the group. What happens next unfolds with terrifying speed. Panic erupts across the airstrip. People run for cover. Confusion replaces relief. Moments earlier, passengers were preparing to leave Guyana. Now, survival has become the only thing that matters. Congressman Leo Ryan becomes one of the victims of the attack. Journalists and defectors are caught in the chaos as well. The incident shocks everyone involved. What began as a fact-finding visit has transformed into a deadly confrontation. When the violence ends, the consequences are devastating. Lives have been lost. Others are injured. Personal belongings remain scattered across the runway. The attack sends a clear message. Yet remarkably, the tragedy at the airstrip is not the end of the story. While events unfold at Port Kaituma, another gathering is beginning back inside Jonestown. A meeting that will become one of the most analyzed moments in modern history. Residents are called together beneath the central pavilion. Families arrive carrying children. Elderly members take their seats. Loudspeakers hum overhead. Hundreds gather beneath the wooden structure as darkness begins settling over the jungle surrounding them. Standing before the crowd, Jim Jones addresses the settlement. His voice sounds tired, yet his authority remains intact. He tells residents that hostile forces will soon arrive. According to Jones, the future now offers only one remaining option. Not everyone agrees. Among the crowd sits Christine Miller, one of the few individuals willing to publicly challenge Jones. Calm but determined, she questions the direction of the discussion. As the conversation continues, Christine Miller argues that alternatives still exist.
I think there is another way.
The response is immediate. Supporters interrupt repeatedly. Voices rise. Pressure builds. Residents who remain loyal to Jones push back against Miller's arguments. As the meeting continues, Jim Jones repeatedly returns to the same phrase: revolutionary suicide. He insists that what is about to happen is not surrender, not defeat, but a final political statement. The words are repeated so often that they begin shaping the reality of the people listening.
We didn't commit suicide. We committed an act of revolutionary suicide.
According to Jones, the outside world has left them no future. The instructions begin with the youngest members of the community. Families remain seated together beneath the pavilion lights. Some residents appear calm. Others seem uncertain. Across the gathering, emotions vary dramatically. Yet the overall direction of the meeting continues moving forward without interruption. One family after another begins stepping forward. Rows of residents move through the pavilion in an organized pattern. Conversations continue in the background. Some voices express fear. What makes tape Q042 so disturbing is not simply what happened. It is the fact that we can hear it unfolding. The recording preserves confusion, emotion, disagreement, reassurance, and fear. By now, Christine Miller's objections have largely disappeared from the discussion. The debate that briefly challenged Jim Jones no longer influences the direction of the meeting. The possibility of another outcome grows smaller with every passing minute. Resistance is fading. Yet not everyone remains beneath the pavilion. A small number of residents choose a different path. Under cover of darkness, they move away from the settlement and into the surrounding rainforest. The jungle becomes their only chance of survival. Among those who escape is Stanley Clayton. Navigating darkness, uncertainty, and fear, he moves deeper into the rainforest. Behind him, Jonestown continues. Ahead of him lies only jungle. But in that moment, uncertainty is preferable to staying.
I knew then that everybody was gonna die.
Eventually, the sounds from the pavilion begin fading. The loudspeakers grow quiet. The settlement that had once been filled with activity settles into silence. Darkness spreads across the jungle, and for the first time in years, Jonestown becomes still. The following day, investigators return to the area. Aircraft approach the settlement from above. At first, those observing from the air struggle to understand what they are seeing. Then the scale of the event begins revealing itself. From above, Jonestown appears almost unchanged. Cabins remain standing. Pathways remain visible. The pavilion still occupies the center of the settlement. Yet the reality beneath that calm appearance is something investigators will never forget. As officials begin documenting the scene, the numbers continue rising. Initial estimates fail to capture the true scale. The count grows steadily larger. Hundreds become more than anyone originally imagined. Eventually, the final figure exceeds 900 lives lost.
Babies were fed the lethal potion with it's believed each lived about 5 minutes.
News of the tragedy spreads across the world. Newspapers rush special editions into print. Television networks interrupt regular programming. Radio stations provide updates throughout the day. Within hours, the name Jonestown becomes known across the globe. Among the survivors is Hyacinth Thrash. Her account remains one of the most unusual details in the entire story. While chaos consumed the settlement, she remained away from the central gathering. By circumstances almost impossible to predict, she survived.
I slept through the whole thing.
The buildings of Jonestown would eventually deteriorate. Nature would reclaim much of the settlement. Yet one piece of evidence survives. The recording. Tape Q042 remains one of the most significant audio records ever preserved, allowing future generations to study the event directly. Over time, public memory often reduces Jonestown to a single phrase or a simplified explanation. Yet the reality was far more complicated. The story involves years of trust, manipulation, idealism, isolation, loyalty, fear, and gradual psychological control. Perhaps the most important question is not how the tragedy ended. It is how it began. How thousands of people came to trust a single leader. How warning signs were ignored. And how a vision of hope slowly transformed into something entirely different.
When people ask why, they usually start too late.
Jonestown was not created in a single day, and it did not collapse in a single moment. Because the warning signs did not exist only in Jonestown. They exist anywhere people stop questioning authority, stop challenging certainty, and stop asking difficult questions. And perhaps that is the most unsettling part of all.